Alright, we're gonna get started, at least George is on his way upstairs, I understand, so let's call the meeting to order. Quick roll, please.
Chairman Blair J. Siglin.
Here.
Vice Chair Wayne M. Richards.
Here.
Secretary Treasurer Jean Enright.
Present.
Commissioner George E. Mastix is currently out of the room. Commissioner Peyton W. MacArthur is currently in transit. Executive Director Emmanuel Almeida.
Here.
Board Counsel Greg Picken.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Alright, can we please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. We have a second.
Second.
Second, any discussion, all in favor? All opposed, carries 3-0. Additions, deletions, presentations, announcements.
Mr. Chairman, happy to say that ours is done.
No presentations, no deletion, that's good. Okay. All right, then we'll go to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anyone on the consent that they need to pull or discuss?
Move approval.
No,
I just wanted to know if we could just to the, consent E7, that we can add the ML, oh, it's already on there. Okay, I'm sorry.
okay, all right, you need a motion with a second?
Second.
Second, any other discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 3-0. All right, district reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by talking what's happening around the port. Commissioners, the City of Riviera Beach has developed a new business council. I was invited to join and participate in this organization. The organization is a sub-organization of the Northern Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce. Its mission is to provide guidelines to the education sector so that a pipeline between Riviera Beach youth and they can be prepared for the job in and around our community. Our next meeting for this particular organization will be here on January 19th between the hours of 6 and 8. Everyone is invited, and again, as I mentioned, I've been invited to go ahead and participate, join them, which I'm very glad I did so. Moving on, we did have our first meeting with the City of Riviera Beach CRA parking facility. Commissioner MacArthur and I met with Tony Brown and Ms. Don Pardo to further discuss the CRA's plans for a parking structure. As we all have heard, there have been for lack of a better word, a separation between the CRA and Viking development. So we wanted to see what kind of an impact that was going to have on their plans. What we were told is that the CRA will continue to move forward with a planned 1,000 parking spot structure. It appears that the most likely point that they will be building it would be on what is commonly known as Spanish Court.
Can I point that out so we can see where that would be?
Sure. It appears that the most likely point that they will be building it would be on what is commonly known as Spanish Court.
Can I point that out so we can see where that would be?
Sure, that would be in this, where am I? This here, right in here.
Are the buildings still there? Are they?
The buildings are there, but I believe that in the month of January, they're gonna start demolishing. Now, if you look at the close proximity, it will work for the port if we ever get into a point where we are able to utilize it by continuing to use our valet parking system. One of the offers was obviously to have a separate entrance just for the port traffic. So again, we will continue to have additional meetings. Our next meeting will be here in the month of January, of course. They're interested in our volumes and our historical parking volumes for the last 5 years. All right. Not too early enough, but just as a reminder that in the 2016 summer intern program. We are planning on having an announcement in the month of April, at which time we will have applications available, along with the exact date of this internship program coming up in this year. Next will be the MLK Parade. If you recall, some of you may recall, we got destruction.
That's us. See, you
If
said
you
wait.
recall, some of you may recall, we got destruction.
That's us. See, you said wait.
Fortunately,
See, wait. See me?
unfortunately, this structure no longer exists.
You get this one, girl.
This was contaminated with termites, and the axle underneath actually broke, and we had to dispose of it. The question now remains is, do we have anything in place? And the answer to that is no. Can we build something? The answer to that is yes, but it will take a very long time, and it will be very, very expensive. To that end, we have gone ahead and started to think about alternatives. One of which idea came from one of our commissioners, that she was looking at the monitor. It's a possibility of maybe having a boat, any of the companies around here that could lend us a boat, and obviously have some of the people, some of the commissioners. Unfortunately, none of the boat companies are interested. So,
Surprise.
another idea would be the possibility of renting some, a few convertibles, but I'll leave that to the board as to who will be participating, and maybe that would be an acceptable transportation. A convertible for a half a day would probably be in the neighborhood of about $250. Will be
I have a comment. How much would it cost us to do that little concoction over again? Because that was not expensive for our maintenance, people to do.
okay?
And I just, if we're going to participate in community events and parades and things like we used to do years ago, I would want to see the court just have a carnival parade. I mean, we need to say Port Palm Beach with some kind of ship or something. And how much would that cost? That didn't cost us hardly anything. I know the maintenance guy threw it up in a hurry. It was inexpensive.
What became, should I say, convenient was that the axle was here.
Mhm.
The axle has the chassis underneath it, we already had it. Unfortunately, that's the most expensive part of this, this contraction.
What
Quite
happened to our old
honestly,
chassis?
sorry,
What happened to the old one?
it broke, that's what we had to get rid of it. So, again, it is staff's recommendation for us to look for an alternative rather than to go out and get something extremely expensive and put some labor to it. It's not impossible, but it will take a very long time, and it can be a very expensive proposition.
Oh, you keep saying long time and expensive. Let's go back to this. How much did this cost? I don't think it even cost us hardly anything, because the guys
was
put
in
it
here.
together. Maybe it wasn't even, I can't look, it wasn't even $1,000, I don't think. They built it and got it together and put it up. We got the chassis from someplace.
The chassis was here, and that's what
Okay,
made that.
so
possible.
that's the thing, we need to get a chassis.
A chassis like that could be, just throwing something out, could be anywhere around $10,000 for just the chassis.
Wayne, you had something?
The way our director is putting it, it's difficult to say, well, go do it, quite frankly.
But
So,
he's
you know,
making it impossible.
well, you know, I do believe we should have some level of involvement. We are in the city, so I do support us doing something that's reasonable. I will admit, the way that is being presented by staff, it sounds like it would be a very difficult, very expensive, very laborious task, which would be hard to support. I would like to support something that's not laborious, that's not expensive, that's not as difficult as being presented. So, I would like us to do something, if it's reasonable, it's not going to be, take too much time or expense.
Yeah, let's look into, something that won't cost, and the main, not so much the cost, but also just the staff and all the time it takes.
Comes to.
Yeah, exactly, so if we can get maybe a flatbed truck or something like that, and check with the city, maybe they've got, 3 or 4, floats already that they're gonna go by, so we'll just, look into it and
All right.
get back to us.
I just want to make one other comment, because we talk about community, we we need to, if we're gonna have a presence, like Commissioner Richard said, we need to try to participate and let them know that we're just, not just here. And a car, like I said before, would not, I mean, that's not for. So, and I don't think, my memory, I know that was years and years and years ago, way before your time, maybe about 11 years ago, we did this. And for years, we continued it. But, I don't think it took but maybe 2 days to put this together, or a week.
Danny's gonna look into it and he's gonna get back to us.
Okay.
But I certainly don't wanna spend $10,000 and have all our maintenance staff working for
Right.
a month. you
Oh,
know.
no.
So-
I think they can do it in 2 weeks.
Well, and how would you know that?
Because they did it before.
Well,
Trust
okay.
me.
All right, Manny, just look into it and, you know,
Hopefully we have it
we'll see if
January.
there's something that we can do.
Okay. All right, continuing, the Tigerwood, Hero World Challenge Nassau. You'll grab to see a picture. This is a project, Tigerwoods had a golf tournament out in Nassau. And what you're seeing is the equipment that NBC put out there is broadcasted. That project came back through the Port of Palm Beach. The gentleman that you see in the blue shirt happens to be a very good friend of mine. He's the one responsible for directing this traffic to the Port of Palm Beach. There were 11 trucks, and it took them almost 3 hours to offload these trucks. They have to be moved rather slowly because of how much equipment they have, and you don't want to rock the boat. Yeah, just almost a week ago, this past Friday, we have our core staff Christmas party. Well attended, of course, this has become an annual event. Everyone had a real good time. There was plenty of food, and honestly, it's almost a family, it is sort of a family affair.
Can you go back to that slide? Who's that in the front getting the food? Who's that? I don't recognize that lady.
That's Jackie.
No? Purple. Oh, it's Annette. I'm sorry.
It's okay, thanks.
And who's that with all the food and the colorful tie? That's got all that food.
Wait a minute, it's the guy that just lost 30 pounds.
Really? Congratulations. Don't eat that candy bar then. All right. Good willpower, good for you, all right.
And, listeners, I wanted to mention that the Port's 2015 annual toy drive officially came to a close today. Although we do not have a final number yet, I'm proud to say that this collaborative effort between the Port, its tenants, users, and local businesses will have distributed more than 1,000 toys to local area children in need during the month of December. We would like to acknowledge and extend our sincere thanks to all the organizations displayed on your screen that helped make this year such a huge success. We thank each and every one of them. About the Port and its promotional presentations, we had several. River Beach Maritime Academy, Tara, Sable Club, provided them with a field trip. Dr. Mary McLean, 15 Elementary School, also that was in Tara, Palm Beach State College, we were joined by 12 of their staff members. Commissioner Enright also was part of that group. The Youth Leadership Growth Marine Industry in 2015, that just happened a couple of days back on December 10th. That was Carl did that. There was a Century Village Port Tour on December the 11th. They went on board the Blue Horizon. And tomorrow, which is the reason why we are meeting today, I will be in Miami. I have to be there by 7 o'clock in the morning. Nice. To attend this Florida Custom Forwarders Association's conference on Cuba's next step. I will be the moderator, and my job is to introduce two well-known individuals in the Cuba studies, basically. That is scheduled to begin at 8:30 in the morning. Palm Beach Central High School field trip will be coming up on January the 13th, 2016. And events, you need any additional information on E10 community events, we do have the AAPA Shipping International Trades in Tampa, January the 21st and 22nd, and of course, the AAPA Commissioner Seminar here in West Palm Beach, February the 9th through the 11th. That will be held at the Marriott in Okeechobee, downtown. Commissioners, if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. If not, I yield the floor to Mr. President.
Anybody have, engineering?
Okay, well, let's go with the engineering. Let's-
Engineering next.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just a few small updates. The Army Corps of Engineers, they're dredging, maintenance dredging bids. They were received on December 17th, as of tomorrow. They still plan on awarding the maintenance dredging on January 14th. The first 17 project, we advertised that on December 6th. We had a pre-construction meeting on December 10th. All the contractors made it pretty loud and clear that they want to move the bid date back 2 weeks, so we obliged them. We should get a better defined bid and probably lower bids for that, so I still think we'll be able to get all that funding spent in the proper amount of time. Other than that, that's all I have, Commissioners. I'll show you the question.
Let's see here. On the, is there anything, any updates on the Loading Bridge or anything? Is there anything?
Coming up.
Oh, that's coming up next? Okay.
Very capital project.
Oh, okay. Some district reports here. Okay, very good. Yes, sir.
It kind of goes in depth in that, on, one of the items says that it's been suggested that the new scope, meaning dredging, would include the safety improvements such as the widening of areas C, D, setting basin, settling basin, and the entrance channel. I know all those decisions were made long before I arrived, but I think at some point that's something that seems to be a lot of controversy, and maybe that's something we need to address again and to specify this is what we need and this is why we need it. And also, and this goes into the other item, we have on this report, we have the MOB building, which talks about restoring the building, the roof, and the chillers. But on the next report, the capital project report, we have tearing down the MOB. And I think it's, I talked to Tom about it, and it's an either or. We're not, obviously, we're not gonna put out a new roof and then knock down the building, at least I hope not. And if I may, I'd like to get, I keep hearing from the coalition that the court has not, the Army Corps has not dredged to the maximum allowable depth. And they seem to imply that if we do that, a lot of our other issues will go away. Would it be possible to get like a map of the various areas with the current depth, the actual depth, but also the allowable depth? So I could, see the difference, so I could talk to them, because when I talk to them now, I don't have any point of reference.
Sure.
Thank you, that's all.
Yeah. I know, Mr. McArthur will be talking to them, but I was wondering if you could insert some of the language or meet with Mr. Ward, because he had some great ideas about how we can get things solved, and there could be a happy medium between the two and not destroy, the environment, things of that nature.
Actually, I think we need to bring at some point everybody together, and have a big workshop with all these parties, because like the pilots and Mr. Ward's unique perspective, and but I don't think it should be one commissioner. I think it really needs to be all of us. It's but I mean, I think we need to stop kicking the ball back and forth and see what we do. And on another note, I met with Congresswoman Frankel the other day, the AFL-CIO legislative breakfast, and she asked me to meet with her staff. And I'm not exactly sure what the subject is, but that meeting is taking place tomorrow morning. But I know, I have reason.
I think it may have been sent, but they drafted a letter for the state association to send as well.
Have we gotten copies of that yet by any
I
chance?
think we have the local one.
I have not seen any copies, but that's simple enough. We can
Yeah,
get
that's,
distributed.
yeah, I mean, that's something that, you know, I think everybody's interested in, since this is a safety issue.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It'll be a short report. The big news is, of course, our local bill was voted upon at the delegation meeting last week and passed unanimously. And the next step now is for Representative Hager, who is our sponsor, has submitted the bill for introduction. The next step is, and I was hoping that by today we'd have it, but soon we will have an actual bill number, and then we get references, and when the session starts on January 12th, I don't know how many people are going up for Palm Beach County Day, but that's when the next committee week will begin. Probably the week after will be when local bills start getting heard. So we're in the queue, we're in good shape, and no opposition, and so I anticipate a passage of a local bill this session. And on Monday of this week, Director Almira and myself had a telephone conference with Lolly, Mamo, now it's Morrison, Chief of Staff for Congressman Hastings, and that now he is going to be the congressman representing the Port of Palm Beach. So we briefed the Chief of Staff on just the top line performance of the port, what's going on, what's happening. We discussed the possibility of if there is Tiger money or any federal money. We do have an on-port rail program that we want to refurbish and install new, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. He asked us to please keep her up on that. It's been some time since the congressman was here, so the next is working on scheduling a meeting for Congressman Hastings to come, but he's been following it, and they're looking forward to being our new advocate in Washington.
Okay. Anything else? That's it? Any questions? Very
I
good.
do apologize, I didn't know the meeting was on Wednesday. My wife and I have a holiday party, so if you don't mind, I'm going to take my leave.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
good.
Another reason we shouldn't change the meeting dates.
Alrighty. Old business.
Good afternoon. Paul Zaleski, Chief Financial Officer. The Port and Emira entered into a lease and operating agreement on May 1st, 2014. While very complicated and detailed, the contract, it really did boil down to contingent on three factors. First, Emira was to receive a license to export natural gas to a non-CREE country from our government. Second, once that was done, the economics of the business model proposal needed to be approved by their investment committee. And finally, the third point is all of that needed to be accomplished by the end of this year, December 31st. Emira finally received their export license from our government October 19th of this year. It was about a year later than they had anticipated, and the delay was mostly the time it took for our federal government to resolve some jurisdictional issues they had between two federal agencies, the DOE and FERC. We're all aware over the past 6 months, oil prices have plummeted to unprecedented low levels. And as a result, currently, the economic advantage of converting from oil to natural gas-based electric in the Grand Bahamas has dissipated. It is not unreasonable to believe that if they went to their investment committee today, that shipping natural gas from our port would not be the most beneficial option they had. Port staff met with senior Emira staff to discuss the economic situation, the implications, and the looming 12/31/15 termination date. Both parties, the Port and Emira, agreed to continue to seek a long-term business relationship, but also recognize that additional time would be needed to assess both the long-term oil pricing situation, as well as the possibility of exploring alternative fuel possibilities for export. The attached amendment extends the due diligence period for the agreement for an additional 24 months at a lease rate of approximately $10,000 per month for the port. During the course of these 24 months, the port will have use of that property and be able to park cars, space assignments, so we have the use of it for 24 months. Port, staff, and Amira also committed to meet in the first quarter of 2016 to identify additional business models, to negotiate, renegotiate, or change contract terms if needed. And once completed, we will come back to the board with these options and ask for a consummation of a new or possibly revised contract. I have asked, the Amira has already signed this agreement. It is being held by our attorney in escrow, awaiting board's approval. Once it's approved, they'll instruct our attorney to release it from escrow and have it signed. I'd like to request that if you do approve, that you authorize the executive director to execute the contract.
Okay, fine. We have someone from the city of Riviera Beach. Peter, come on up and take a few minutes, tell us what you know.
Peter Ringel, building official with the city of Riviera Beach. The city of Riviera Beach would just like to state for the record that the city has concerns about the proposed facility at this location and its conformance to the building code, zoning code, and fire code. So we just wanted to make the board aware of, we have concerns about that, and they will need to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask you one question? We've been working with them for how many years now, Paul?
Roughly 2.
2 years, and this is the first time you're coming to us with concerns, or 2 years ago it was okay, or I'm just curious why you didn't express some concern 2 years ago.
The concerns have been expressed to Amira. We gave them the necessary code sections that they need to comply with, and we have not gotten any information back from them.
Okay.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
it's my understanding, last month, we all saw the letter from the town of Palm Beach. But it's my understanding that both the town of Palm Beach and the city of Riviera Beach had sent letters to the appropriate federal agency doing exactly what you're asking for, outlining the concerns. Have you, if I may, Mr. Amira, have you seen those letters?
I saw the letter from the township.
The one last month?
Right.
Would it be possible for us to get copies of
I distributed.
No, the other 2 letters that went to the federal agency?
I have not seen those, but I suppose I can ask Mary.
If we could, if they exist and if they spell out the concerns, it would be helpful.
And there was one from the city also of Riviera Beach.
That's my understanding.
Do you have any idea if we got that you sent us a copy of that? If you were,
I am not aware. I would have to get back with the appropriate people at the
if
city.
you
to
could
get
do
the
that,
answer to
Jerry, do you have
question.
something like that?
Commissioners, if I may, Amira was here last March, this past March. They had a meeting in this room. There were many officials here and staff here from the city of Riviera Beach that Amira met with. They explained their plans at that time. They also explained that they would not be moving forward with this project until a number of things occurred. Those things which Paul just explained. He also just explained that the project could be delayed up to 24 months. Amira still is, they still have a way to stay in contact with the city. They've also been in contact with the town of Palm Beach. They don't have any updated information to share with either the town or the city at this point. They are very open and willing to talk to either party or any party and let them know where things stand.
Right. And they work out of many ports throughout the world, so this is not like the first port that they've ever.
If I may, we're talking about a $20 billion organization who, for their business is energy, delivering energy. And I'm sure this is not the first facility that they've built They have a lot at stake. This is their expertise, and I am sure that they will comply with every building code and regulation that is required.
Exactly.
Also, Mrs. Chair, if I may, they recently purchased TECO, T-E-C-O.
Right.
So we're not dealing with.
Yes.
It seems as though, Amira is simply trying to remain in a holding pattern with us.
That's
And everything I'm hearing is that they have met with the city, and at a future time when appropriate, there'll be more meetings, Peter. And you're simply restating the city's notice, so thank you, I understand.
I just wanna comment too, is that, I don't think it would have ever been approved if something was wrong, because the federal government, I mean, they know where the port is located, the surroundings in the cities. So they're not going to be placing cities and communities in harm's way if something happens.
Okay, thank you.
I would ask you something else. Paul, what will be the delta to our budget? What did you anticipate coming in, versus what will now come in?
Originally, we were planning at this point in time to be in a phase that was gonna be generating roughly $27,000 a month. Had the contract ended on December 31st, all of that would have been lost, the contract would have been done. This is gonna generate $120,000 a year for 2 years, keeping the contract and a possibility of line.
So our budget shows 27,000 a month in revenue, and we'll be receiving 10. So the delta
Correct.
minus 17.
But we'll also be able to use the property,
That's key.
and we'll be able to generate revenue. Now, we did reach an agreement with them whereby if the port is generating income off of that property, we will credit them back 50% of whatever we get up to the maximum of their rent, which I thought was fair. So,
Thank you. Move
Okay.
approval.
All right, we have a motion. Commissioner Richards, do you have a second? Second, Commissioner Enright, any discussion? All in favor, all opposed? Carries 5-0. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners, Carl Baker, Director of Planning. It has been approximately 5 months since you approved the capital budget back in August. The port's a very dramatic, the port is a very dynamic place. Yeah, it's
Oh,
dramatic
wow, we are.
also. Hi, Glenn, I had the wrong car glasses on, my apologies.
That's okay.
We can relate.
Yes. The port is a very dynamic place. In the past 5 months, port staff would have been remiss if they had not found additional grant monies for approved projects or thought of new projects. I would like to show you the proposed changes to the capital projects budget. But first, some of these projects you have never seen before, and one of them has been discussed but never voted on. I am not here to ask permission or approval of any project or to spend any monies. I am merely asking for approval of this budget, and everything else will be brought back to you and discussed in detail before we spend a dime. The on-port rail expansion project was previously approved for $7.75 million. But as of this past August, we only had $575,000 funded. Since then, we have acquired $400,000 in additional grant funding at an additional 50-50 match. Mr. Penske is working towards getting us $5 million at a 100% match from the governor's office to help finance this project, which would reduce our costs from $775 down to $27, which would be a wonderful thing. Under new projects, we are going to do a master plan update. We are required to have a current master plan, and it has to be revised every 5 years. Our current plan was last updated in 2012, so it's time to do this. And again, we will be coming back to you at a later date for $250,000 to work on the master plan update. Currently, this is unfunded, but we're working towards getting some funding for this project. Next up, we have the master plan white paper. We're required by FDOT to update our master plan from scratch every 10 years. This is what allows us to go forward to get funding for our various projects. We're looking to start the master plan white paper update in 2019 with approximately a 2020 delivery date. Conversion of the MOD cargo laydown area. The port has been in ongoing negotiations with Tropical Shipping to understand their needs and to determine their participation in this project. The project shown is to allow both sides an understanding of the size and scope of the project and to assist in the negotiations. And answer Commissioner MacArthur's previous comment, no, we do not intend to put a new roof on the building and then tear it down. But regardless of whatever decisions are made in the future, we are prepared for that course of action. And lastly, we're looking to remove the project to replace the passenger loading bridge. Staff had been in discussions with Celebration Management to replace the current passenger loading bridge. But over time, Celebration Management has decided that it's no longer a need for a new bridge, which would save us $1.5 million by not having to come up with a new passenger loading bridge. Since we're not going to have to do a new passenger loading bridge, under the capital renewal and replacement additions, we are asking to put in $75,000 to refurbish the existing bridge, which is approximately $1.4 million savings over what we were looking at. We're looking also, in addition to this, we've got the MOC fire panel replacement, which was voted on at the previous board meeting. Also, we're looking to put in 2 additional custom stations, which would enable the Celebration passengers to get out of CPP faster and clear the boat sooner. And then lastly, there is an additional replacement vehicle. This also was voted on and approved at the previous board meeting. Again, I'm not asking for approval of any of these projects or permission to spend the money. I'm just looking for an approval on the capital projects budget and the capital renewal and replacement additions. Questions?
I recall a few months ago, actually when the new cruise ship arrived, Derek Elmira and I were looking at the passenger loading facility, and you mentioned we need to replace, and I said, well, gee, why can't you repair it? What's happened?
Sure.
Of course, we're pleased to hear that it doesn't need to be replaced, but why the 780?
Commissioners, in the conversations that I had with the president of that company that no longer is there, it was his idea to replace and put something more modern in what we now have
Talking
there.
about the cruise ship company?
Yes, sir.
Be specific, because, yeah, I didn't know you were talking.
Charlie Kinnear.
Okay.
As we know, Charlie's no longer associated with that company. It was my intention all along to ask the company for some participation towards the replacement of that cost of $1,500,000. When Charlie left, we immediately went back to the line and asked them about our plans. At which point they said, no, we don't need to. What you have there is fine, just maintain. So we have looked at it. I mean, we can replace it if we wish, but let's give it a nice refurbishing. And I honestly believe it's going to be less than 75,000, but it suffices. It works, and they're not asking for anything else. So.
Okay.
I just have a question. You mentioned that Mr. Pinsky had received, is that a commitment or we applied for it?
Mr. Pinsky is working towards, he's working with the governor's office.
Okay, that's for the match.
No ma'am, a $5 million outright grant. No match.
And when will we hear something about it? Do you have any idea or where we are? I know he's not here.
Yeah, it'll most likely be in this legislative session. I know that the governor's office has received the letter, and what the governor's office did is they went over to the FDOT to send it back to FDOT. We have had some communication with FDOT, and most likely right now is still between FDOT and the governor's office. $5 million, I don't think to sneeze at, but he's fairly confident that he can do it.
Well, I hope so, because, it appears that all the ports down south, they've been receiving funds and we've, like, been left out of the whole pot, so hopefully
Well,
this time it will happen.
they've had to match, but yes, they have received funds.
Okay, thank you.
Couple things, Jira, are we still negotiating with somebody that's interested in the MOB? Lockheed, or is that still a?
We did have a company, a local company that was interested in the MOB. They recently have let me know that it looks as though they may consider building versus leasing. And the reason for that is because they need warehouse space adjacent to their office space. We have let them know, of course, that we could accommodate that. My sense is though they're leaning towards constructing.
Thank you. And do we have a time frame, a timeline for deciding whether we're going to refurbish the MOB or demolish it?
That will be part of the negotiations. It will be
With
negotiations.
Tropical, or?
Yes.
Okay. And one other thing, I like pie in the sky as much as anybody else, but Mr. Pinsky was going to bring the governor, and we never heard any more about the governor. And now, and I hate to pick on him when he's not here, and now Mr. Pinsky's going to try to get a $5 million, 100% grant from the governor, which is wonderful, and I hope it happens. But I'd like staff to follow up, and if it doesn't happen or it's changed, I'd like that to be on an agenda as well, so that we track it. Thank you, that's all.
I just want to piggyback on that, and, try to add it, I know that the governor is in Palm Beach County all the time, back and forth, and if you can just ask him, hey, if we can get him here, and then let him know our needs, because it appears that we've been kind of cut off from Washington when it's happened, so we need to be able to, take care of our needs from the border, from
Well,
border.
2 points to that, Commissioner. The last time he visited Baronsides, that's when I delivered the letter requesting the $5 million.
I'm
So
saying
one.
that before.
But also, let's keep in mind that it was just announced right before the meeting, Tiger grants have been announced, $500 million. So we better get on the stick as well and go for that.
Right, but we have a problem because of the letter that Louis Frankel.
No, Tiger grants, oh, I'm
Has
sorry.
nothing to do with that.
It's got nothing to do with that.
Okay,
That's
okay, okay.
All right, thank
Won't the
you.
governor be here tomorrow morning at the Business Development Board?
There's a breakfast that needs to.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be there tomorrow morning.
Gerald Ward? Front and center.
Good evening, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. Obviously, budgets are the prime reason that you exist as a board. And this particular item certainly leads you to question why the district on 27 August adopted a revised budget, and 34 days later, they found that they had $400 and some odd thousand more than they $483,000 more than the $300,000 that was in the 27 August budget. It's not 5 months. It's a very short time that a big disparity occurred. But more importantly is twice during the presentation he said, well, we're not asking for approval, but you are granting budget authority, which is the first item for staff direction. And the $2.85 million for demolition of the MOB certainly needs more than just let's throw that in the budget or continue it, because Opal's office building here could be disestablished and you move this whole kit and caboodle back over to the MOB, which is where something like this ought to be, not on waterfront, not on prime waterfront. So I just think that you need to give super consideration. Anytime somebody brings a budget issue to you, whether it's operations or whether it's capital, I think you have now.
Thank you. Good. Next item.
Chairman, second.
Oh, we need to do a motion for this. Yes, we need a motion to approve the budget.
So,
Commissioner Enright, motion, second.
Second for discussion.
Second, Commissioner Richards.
Discussion. I'm gonna vote in the positive. I am concerned that, well, is this alleged $5 million part of this, or simply was the forming now? The 5 of the 7.75 million is what we're hoping to receive, is that correct?
That is correct.
That's 70%. So, we'll say yes, work on it, but 70% of the proposal, we really don't know we're gonna get. So, I'll vote in the affirmative, but it feels a little loosey.
but we're moving on.
Just a second, Jim. Paul, do you have any comment on, is this, I mean, obviously you went through this with,
I've gone through it with respect to port required cash. We have sufficient cash for the first and the second year of this plan. As we go out, if the board, we'd have to reassess going forward whether or not the plans are financially viable and how to fund the port end of it. With respect to the changes, for instance, the fiscal year 16, relatively little change to the amount of cash the port needs.
And 17.
And 17 as well.
good, okay, thank you very much.
Also, if I may, Commissioners, this port expansion should be done in phases. We're not saying we're gonna go ahead and spend that amount at once. This will definitely be in different phases.
Right.
So I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to do it.
Okay, very good. All right, more discussion, all in favor, all opposed?
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Good, any other old business?
Commissioners, item H1 under new business is the master plan, Palm Beach master plan. It has two components. We have an update. The last master plan we had was updated, was adopted in 2012, and it was for the time period of 2012 through 2017. To continue to acquire project funding through the state of Florida and the FDOT, the master plan is required to be updated every 5 years. It takes approximately 1 year to go through the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan approval process. They have two times you can enter into that process, one in the fall, one in the spring. So we're working towards that. Port staff and FDOT staff, we're working towards securing a grant to where at a future board meeting, we want to bring a joint participation agreement and a resolution to the board for the funding for that. We figure it's going to be about $250,000.
And where is that coming from?
It would be a 50-50, we're working on a 50-50 grant. Our conversations with FDOT so far have been very positive.
Okay.
So we would have to put up $125,000.
Is that what it cost the last time?
This last time it was just, it was right around $200,000.
200, yeah.
All right.
That's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Order of $1 million to consultants to help us with our company.
That's a lot of money.
Okay.
Most of that, if I may, most of that is towards market assessment and, additional statistical gathering and analyzing. But I agree with you, it's a lot of money for it.
All right, keep on going.
The second portion of this agenda item is port staff is requesting direction on consulting services for the master plan update. We have basically two options. We can go through a CCNA process and select a consultant to do the update. Or we can go with our current consultant, CH2M Hill. They updated our last plan, and we can use that continuing contract to update. And I just wanted direction from the board which way you want to proceed.
I'm leaning towards going with our current vendor. However, I have the question, and sort of may put you in a different spot. Are we losing something, objectivity or freshness of look if we go back with our current vendor? That would be my only concern, that we're not getting a new look, a fresh look.
That's a good question. And right now, there's we kind of know which way we want to go currently, I think. But, a fresh look, maybe for the white paper master plan, you know, in 2019, maybe that's when, we could,
Okay, well, I would not have a problem going with our current designer.
Go ahead.
I agree, and it's been 5 years. I doubt that they've spent a lot of time looking at it over the last 5 years. So I think they'll look at it with fresh eyes, and I don't have a problem with that.
Will the cost change or anything, or?
you know, it's all, either way, it's a negotiated price. Negotiated price.
Your award, you have a comment? Comment?
Sure do.
All right.
Earl Ward, 2135 Broadway. Well, I didn't put a card in for this, but I happened to be sitting where I could see, and finally somebody brought a third card out. So otherwise I was going to comment on public comment, which I still have a card for. Basically, you need to use this process to do what you have not been doing, of getting buy-in and knowledge of the public in the port activities. And it's not only this particular project, it's the codification. I told you a year ago that if you wanted to get a bill through, and I will tell you in the next item that there is lots of controversy over this bill. So I don't think it'll probably pass, or I certainly hope it doesn't pass. But codification required 23 meetings at the Port of Canara to get it through. This controversy over the poor EIS by the Corps of Engineers on the port project that did get us through the border is another issue that ought to be addressed. That is in the comprehensive plan of Palm Beach County now, and I will guarantee you, as I think Commissioner MacArthur has heard from the town of Palm Beach and others, that is not a dead issue. And I know from the environmental groups, it's the same problem. So you probably are better off going with the horse that you've used in this planning process. But you also, if you look at the engineer's report, he says, I can do part of this, and that's where the lead-in could cut your cost by your own staff putting together suggestions that would go out for public meetings before you end up with something that causes you controversy.
Yeah. And thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the portion of the comments regarding public input. We need to do that as much as possible. We are planning on doing things here at the port and having upfront discussion and potential buy-in now, as opposed to problems later, would be the way to go. Are we gonna make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Manny on these two proposals. I mean, are you, as staff, leaning one way or the other, or do you think, the cost, whether we went out to the CCNA process or negotiate with CH Trim Hill? I guess we can always negotiate, and if we don't like what comes back, then we can always change it, but I'm just curious, staff.
Commissioner, did you mention me or?
Well, you're both on the staff, so either.
If I can, I'll mention it. I think that's an excellent suggestion, which is, let's negotiate with CH Stone Hill. And if we're not happy with what comes back, then we can always go out on the street.
Okay.
We don't have a timeline.
Right.
Although the year's coming by. So, yes, it behooves us to have something and start working on it, but we can negotiate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval. I move approval that we move forward on updating our master plan and that we negotiate with the current vendor CH2M Hill to reach an agreement. I'll leave it at that. CH2M Hill.
Second?
I second.
Second, discussion?
I just want to say that, going with CH2 Hill is the way to go, because they know more about the port than any other company who's ever worked for any other engineering company. So, should be simple and easy, and a lot of things that other companies would have to go into and investigate and research, they don't have to do it, so I think we're going in the right direction.
All right,
Thank you.
well, like I said, I'm always willing to negotiate and see what they come up with. Hey, did you have anything you want to say? No. Okay, all right, any other discussion?
No, I go along with
Okay,
the
all right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, carries 5 and nothing to negotiate, and report back to us how the negotiations are proceeding. All right. Anything else?
That's it for us, we rest.
Attorney, have anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
Well, at least you got your, thank you on the record.
Right.
We'd like to make sure that everyone knows that you are here. All right, so now we have comments from the public, and Gerald Ward, who has now moved from 2135 Broadway. Gerald Ward, who has now moved from 2135 Broadway.
But I will comment on the transparent podium that showed up, which I hope that produces more of the public involvement that the commissioner just referenced is going to occur in planning of this district. There's lots of things to be done cheaply here, and we tend to want to go, obviously, spend a lot of money on some things. This meeting has poor attendance, and if it wasn't for reading the minutes and finding Commissioner MacArthur took a page and a half to object to moving it to Wednesday, I wouldn't have found out about it, because I honestly read the agenda and didn't even notice it. But the next time you do something like this, you need to put it in big letters that, hey, the day is not Thursday.
Another reason not to change the date.
The second item is the local bill. I've already provided the local bills committee some information that they need to focus on. But there is controversy over that bill, regardless of what Mr. Pinsky may believe. And I think he needs to really go back and look at the current statutes, codification requirements, and certainly the increase in pay with effectively no bounds other than the majority. State Road 710 right-of-way, comprehensive plan, land use, zoning application that you discussed at the last meeting, and the city extorted 18 grand out of you for the application fee. I have not found out when that's going to go to the planning board. I hope it's not the last meeting of this month, which is in Christmas, New Year's fetching. But I hear rumors that it might be February. But that is a significant issue of which you all promised that we will have a state road connection between State Road 5 and Old Dixie. And that's not a dead issue, regardless of your quitclaim deed that you got out of the district 3 years ago. So it is an issue that's still to be on the table, and I did have the comprehensive plan, but since somebody found more public roads, I dropped that now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ward, why do you believe that bill would allow the commissioners to increase the salary with no limits?
A vote of 3 is what I said.
That's not accurate.
Well, what is it?
I believe there's a limit.
There is a limit.
And it's
3%.
It's 3%.
Right.
That's not unlimited amount.
Well, I think part of our problem, if you
And
look,
you said unlimited, but that you're an engineer, and that's wrong.
well, it is a limit.
It's 3% per
Right.
year.
You said unlimited.
You said unlimited,
Unlimited.
but it's not. It's 3%.
And we started a
It
base.
is an unlimited fact that you can go and.
Are you a lawyer or an engineer?
I'm not a legal, thank God.
Ward, we're straight shooters. It's 3% a year maximum. You said it's unlimited, but it's not.
It's a process of which you, by 3, can continue to raise your salary every year. We haven't had a salary raise for many years here. If it's our real philosophy, I think we ought to reduce your pay to zero and give you expenses. That is probably the problem that we have with the 160 in Tallahassee, the 528, 535 in Washington, is people are now looking for money. And my landlord for 30 years used to tell me every week. And if you go back in his history, he challenged a lot of this.
All right, thank you. Comments from the commission? Dave?
Yes, just a couple.
But I will comment on the transparent podium that showed up, which I hope that produces more of the public involvement that the commissioner just referenced is going to occur in planning of this district. There's lots of things to be done cheaply here, and we tend to want to go, obviously, spend a lot of money on some things. This meeting has poor attendance, and if it wasn't for reading the minutes and finding Commissioner MacArthur took a page and a half to object to moving it to Wednesday, I wouldn't have found out about it, because I honestly read the agenda and didn't even notice it. But the next time you do something like this, you need to put it in big letters that, hey, the day is not Thursday.
Another reason not to change the day.
The second item is the local bill. I've already provided the local bills committee some information that they need to focus on. But there is controversy over that bill, regardless of what Mr. Pinsky may believe. And I think he needs to really go back and look at the current statutes, the codification requirements, and certainly the increase in pay with effectively no bounds other than the majority. State Road 710 right-of-way, comprehensive plan, land use, zoning application that you discussed at the last meeting, and the city extorted 18 grand out of you for the application fee. I have not found out when that's going to go to the planning board. I hope it's not the last meeting of this month, which is in Christmas and New Year's fetching. But I hear rumors that it might be February. But that is a significant issue of which you all promised that we will have a state road connection between State Road 5 and Old Dixie. And that's not a dead issue, regardless of your quitclaim deed that you got out of the district 3 years ago. So it is an issue that's still to be on the table, and I did have the comprehensive plan, but since somebody found more public roads, I dropped that now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ward, why do you believe that bill would allow the commissioners to increase the salary with no limits?
A vote of 3 is what I said.
That's not accurate.
Well, what is it?
I believe there's a limit.
There is a limit.
And it's 3%. 3%.
Right.
That's not unlimited amount.
Well, I think part of our problem, if you look.
You said unlimited. You're an engineer. That's wrong.
Well, it is a limit.
It's 3%.
Right.
You said unlimited.
You said unlimited.
Unlimited.
But it's not. It's 3%.
And he started.
It is an unlimited fact that you can go and.
Are you a lawyer or an engineer?
I'm not a legal, thank God.
Ward, we're straight shooters. It's 3% a year maximum. You said it's unlimited, but it's not.
It's a process of which you, by 3, can continue to raise your salary every year. We haven't had a salary raise for many years here. If you want our real philosophy, I think we ought to reduce your pay to 0 and give you expenses. That is probably the problem that we have with the 160 in Tallahassee, the 528, 535 in Washington, is people are now looking for money.
Thank you.
And my landlord for 30 years used to tell me every week. And if you go back in his history, he challenged a lot of this.
All right, thank you. Comments from the commission? David?
Yes, just a couple things. One, I apologize, I don't know what the delay is. The Homage County Code Enforcement has been out to Peanut Island. The owners of the museum would not give them access, apparently once or twice. I believe they still have had access now. I've talked to the Director of Code Enforcement and copied Manuel. I have to have a meeting with them next week to find out what's going on. And in my last correspondence before they told me they had been denied access, I reminded them that we'd been waiting 2 months, and I thought that was an excessive amount of time, number one. Number two, Manuel and I had the opportunity to say hello to Stuart Kroll the other morning, and he has filed his application for a special exemption with the city of Riviera Beach, which is good news. We'll hope for the best. And finally, I had asked staff to check with the Florida Ethics Commission on the gala tickets, as we have to disclose gifts over $200. I thought it would be easier if we check with the Ethics Commission once instead of 5 times. And I just wanted to know if that's been done and if we have an answer.
That has been done, and we have, we sent a question in writing, and we have an answer in writing. And the answer is that they should be disclosed.
Okay,
Just get that today.
thank you. So we have to.
Yeah, I have a question since you're talking.
Good.
You probably have to ask Mr. Pickett.
The ethics, we're not listed under the ethics because we're not the city or the county, am I correct?
No, the court is governed by the Florida Ethics Code.
Right, the
I
Florida,
think your question may relate to the
The county.
ombudsman, I'm not using the right word, but the Ethics Commission for
Palm Beach
Palm County.
Okay,
That's-
but we're talking about the state of Florida.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
that's fine,
right.
thank you.
And honestly, it did not make any sense to me that, the proposition didn't make sense to me that a commissioner receiving a ticket from his own entity should have to, report it, but, there were multiple tickets, and obviously, one commissioner couldn't use 2 tickets at the same time. So, at any rate, we have it in writing, and I agree with what you're all thinking. That doesn't quite make sense, but that was their answer, and I can provide the question and the answer to all.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just have 2 things. First is a little serious, and second is on a lighter note. As we all know, the port and other municipalities are entering into campaign season. For the record, there's been some concern about who's running and who's not running. I sincerely don't know who's not running, obviously. I know who has declared. As a mature elected official, I will not be involved in anyone's race other than my own. So I want to put that out there today. And you can count on that. Behind the scenes or in front, Wayne Richards will not be involved in any race besides my own. So please take that to the bank. Second, we have a bowl game coming up, Peyton, and you don't have an offense.
We don't have a quarterback.
So, you and I should go to lunch and
How
talk
many,
about that.
how many points are you gonna give us?
We're playing in the state of Florida. Michigan's coming down. The Big Ten is coming to Florida, to your home state. So we need to talk about that off the record.
All right, we can do that. We just got a good field goal kicker for next year. He kicked a field goal, I can't imagine this, but 77 yards.
Hey, we'll give you 3 points whenever you want. That's about it.
You're gonna want our help against Myers, now be good.
All right, anything else on it?
Mr. Chair, I
Well, just
just,
happy,
one thing.
Merry
Exactly.
Christmas, Happy New Year to all the staff for a fine job you've done all year long. And we're looking for a prosperous year next year.
All right, our
Thank
next meeting is January 21st at 4 o'clock. Nothing else, we're adjourned.
Thank you.